As today is Independence Day in India, can you talk about independence from a spiritual perspective? Well, there's so many ways to go about independence from a spiritual perspective, but the core message is spirituality is 100% about freedom. All of that which we are looking for on a spiritual path is freedom. Freedom from desires, freedom from grudges, freedom from our egos, freedom from anger, freedom from our emotions that turn us into a slave. Not freedom from the presence of emotions, but freedom from emotions as the master. I was angry, therefore I hit. Therefore I yelled. I was bored. I was upset. Therefore I drowned my sorrows in alcohol or in drugs or in promiscuity or in gambling or whatever I may do. So freedom from being the slave to every chemical and electrical pattern of energy in my brain. Freedom from being the slave to the subconscious and unconscious patterns that are in me, from my family, from my experience, from the culture, the society, the world that I come in. Spirituality is 100% about freedom. The joy, the peace, the bliss, the ecstasy, the moksha, the liberation, whatever term we use, the enlightenment, it's all synonymous with freedom. Joy, bliss, is freedom from depression, freedom from anxiety, freedom from yearning for possessions to fill me, yearning from titles to fill me, from relationships to fill me. If I really am experiencing joy and bliss, and it's spiritual, and it lasts, and it's deep, it can only come from freedom. It's not going to come from the attainment of, oh, I really wanted, a new blender. I got a new blender, so I'm really happy. I really wanted a new job. I got a new job, so I'm happy. I wanted a new marriage. I wanted a vacation. Whatever I wanted, I got it. I'm happy. Well, as we all know, that's very, 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 very fleeting. Blender breaks. Job isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. Relationship isn't nearly as easy as I thought it was going to be. The fireworks are no longer there. The vacation is over. It was nice while it lasted, now it's over. But if the joy and the bliss are going to last, they actually come from a freedom of that. And here's a very interesting, very deep, very interesting teaching that is really worth holding on to. It may take a moment to fully sink in, but hold on to this as you move through your life, which is the joy that comes in the fulfillment of a desire. So I desire pizza, I desire ice cream, I desire to lose 10 pounds, I desire a nicer house. Whatever level my desire may be, I desire it. I then attain it. I feel happy. But the teaching is the joy that comes in the attainment of a desire is actually not due to the object that I've gotten itself, but due to the fact that temporarily I am free of that desire. So it's actually the freedom from the desire that has brought me joy rather than the object. So think about it in a very simplistic way. I desire a chocolate ice cream cone. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, God, I really, really could use a chocolate ice cream cone. I go out. I finally get a chocolate ice cream. I start to eat it. We know from the science, literally the neurology of sensation and perception, that my taste buds are only actually reacting to the niceness of that chocolate ice cream for the first bite or two. Literally, they respond only to newness. All of the senses do. I won't go into all of that now, but we know scientifically that joy of the taste is there in the first bite. And with every bite after, it actually becomes significantly less. Nonetheless, the joy that I feel at eating the whole chocolate ice cream cone, or maybe having a second or a third, comes not from the ice cream itself. Comes from the fact that in that moment, I'm no longer desiring chocolate ice cream. So it isn't the ice cream itself that has brought joy. It's the fact that for the moments that I'm enjoying it, and for a short while thereafter until I desire now pizza or French fries or whatever now I want, I no longer have that desire. So it's actually the freedom from desire that brings us the joy. But we mistake it and we think, oh, that ice cream brought me so much joy. Oh, that pizza brought me so much joy. Oh, that shopping trip, whatever it was that we've used. So you have to be very, very subtle and very deep to actually notice the distinction between the joy that is actually in response to what I have and the joy that is in response to finally getting what I wanted and therefore being free from wanting it. So freedom lies at the heart of joy, of course of peace. We know that on every level. Freedom from violence, freedom from conflict, freedom from anxiety, freedom from stress. On a personal level, on an interpersonal level, on a national level, on a race and religion level, on an international level, on every level. The peace that we experience comes when there isn't conflict, when there isn't competition, when there isn't fear, when there isn't stress or anxiety. But from a spiritual perspective, freedom goes even deeper. It's freedom from that which chains me. The ego, the expectations, the attachments. All of this stuff that we kind of lump together and we call it Maya. We lump it together and we call it samsara. Whatever word we're using in that context. The world of illusion, the cycle. These are all part of that. They're also all part of a very, very temporary, constantly changing physical body and identity. And so when I identify as the body, when I identify as my career, when I identify as my role, when I identify as my relationships, every aspect that happens in that is going to create problems for me. If I am my body, feels good, looks good, I'm happy. Doesn't feel good, doesn't look good, I'm not happy. If I identify as my job, if I identify as my relationships, if I identify as my bank account, as my relationships are in great shape, people are appreciating me, people are loving me, people are doing what I tell them to do, what I want them to do. My boss is appreciating me. My colleagues are appreciating me. My projects and proposals are successful. Stock market is up. And all of those things. So I'm great. But the minute that those things fall, the minute that people around me no longer do what I want them to do, maybe they don't even stay with me. The minute that my job is no longer feeling satisfying, fulfilling, gratifying, stock market falls, whatever it may be. But I fall with it because I've hooked myself into that as who I am. And so the real spiritual freedom is a freedom from all of that. And this is why all of the rishis and the sages and the saints and the spiritual teachers emphasize over and over and over again. Realize you are the soul, not the body. Realize you're the spirit, not the body. The body is degenerating. It's the only thing we know is true. Matter degenerates. Yeah, sure, we can eat well, we can exercise, we can take care of ourselves, we can keep it held together a little bit longer, slightly more effectively. But it's a matter of a few extra years, a few extra pounds, a little bit of extra muscle, I mean, whatever it may be. But no matter what you do, that body is degenerating. No matter what you do, your relationships will end. Whether they end because you die, or they end because the person you're in a relationship dies. Or because you've left them or they've left you. One or the other, every relationship you are in will end. Your career will end. Whether it's because you get fired, whether you retire, or whether you die. I mean, this is just the stuff that life is made of. All of that is falling through our hands. We're literally dying every day. We are losing our relationships and our jobs every day. Every day we wake up is another day we're closer to death, closer to losing our jobs, closer to losing our relationships, closer to losing our youth and beauty and whatever it may be, intelligence. That's how nature works. Matter degenerates. And so when we identify as that matter, we are stuck. Because then we spend our entire lives trying to prevent the inevitable. This is where, I just came back from America last week, where I had been for several weeks. And wherever you go there, especially in the big cities, New York, LA, San Francisco, as you drive through the streets, all the store windows, billboards, everything is being sold these days by anti-aging claims. I mean, literally. This place, anti-aging, this food, anti-aging, this cream, anti-aging, this. Anti-aging is an oxymoron. You cannot anti-age. You cannot anti-age. Maybe someday, at some point, science is going to figure it out. I seriously doubt it. I think they'll figure a lot of things out. I don't think they will figure out how to keep us from aging. The scriptures, all of the wisdom traditions of the world emphasize that which is born has to die, right? So all of this is to bring us back to the awareness that if I really want freedom, real freedom in my life, it can only come by no longer identifying by that which isn't in my hands. My body degenerating is not in my hands. What my boss thinks of my report is not in my hands. What people who are in relationships with me, how they react to me, not in my hands. What they do with their lives, not in my hands. A spiritual path brings us real freedom. Freedom from all of the depression, the anxiety, the fear. Doesn't mean we don't care. In fact, in an interesting paradox, the most enlightened spiritual masters are the ones who are the most deeply connected. Not being hooked into that doesn't keep them disconnected. You look at Pujya Swamiji, you look at the other enlightened saints, their lives are spent for others. Their lives are compassion in action, prayer in action, meditation in action. Awareness that it's all degenerating. Awareness that it's not in my control. Awareness that it's not in my hands does not stop them from serving. Rather, it makes them serve even more because they're able to do it without the ego attachment of it has to be my way. Has to be my name, has to be this, has to be that. They're able literally to be clear vehicles of the divine flow of the will of the universe and to serve in that way. So it doesn't mean that we don't act, but the freedom is freedom to know who you really are, which isn't your history. It's not your body. It's not your bank account. It's not your job. It's not your relationships. It's not the patterns of chemical and electrical activity in your brain. Who you are is consciousness. And yeah, we forget on an hourly basis, at least. But then you keep remembering. Keep remembering. And that's what the spiritual practice is oh wait, I lost myself. Oh wait, I over-identified. And the way that you know that, the thing that precipitates the oh wait, suffering. I'm stressed. I'm depressed. I'm upset. You can be sure that prior to any of those things was, I was identified. I was over-identified with something that was not in my control. So the moment that we find ourselves depressed, anxious, worried, miserable, not in peace, not in joy, it's because we over-identified and we weren't free. So that's the interaction of spirituality and freedom. And of course, on a very specific level, quickly, since today we're talking about India's independence. On a personal level, my prayer for India, since not all, but the overwhelming majority of people sitting here are Indian tonight, my prayer for India, in her real independence and freedom, is that 72 years ago, India got independent from the colonizers. And yet, there is still such a mentality in so many people, in so many places, about somehow things that are foreign, things that are white, being somehow better than things that are Indian, things that are brown. And it makes me miserable. But it's such a common aspect of Indian life. I see tragically so many people. You know, when you ride on the trains, they give you free newspapers. Here, we get the Hindi papers. My Hindi reading is not very good. But on the trains, you get Times of India, you get Hindustan Times, you get all of the English papers. And so if I'm on the train, I love reading the papers. And one of the things that I always love to read is the matrimonial section. And everybody laughs because here I am, a sannyasi, reading the matrimonials. And I think, people who don't know me must think, well, she's clearly foreign. Maybe she doesn't understand some part of this. But I do understand it. And I'm not reading the matrimonials for me, of course. I'm reading them because I'm waiting for the time. I've been in India 22 years. And I'm waiting for the time to read a matrimonial that does not say fair-skinned beauty. And I have yet to find one. And it's tragic because India is a country, and especially certain parts like South India, are full of dark-skinned, exotic beauties. In America, where I come from, we call that exotic. People buy cream to put on their skin and lie in the sun with oil on their bodies to look dark, to look exotic. But instead of saying dark-skinned exotic beauty, dark-skinned desi beauty, what you see is fair-skinned beauty. And the problem with that, on a personal level, for the girl whose ad that is she looks in the mirror. She knows she's not fair-skinned. And what the message she's getting from the time she's 20, 21, 22, however old she may be, is I have to lie about myself in order to be worthy. She knows that at some point the groom's family's going to meet her. They're going to discover she's not fair-skinned. And how that girl must dread that day. It's horrendous. And so if we could stop somehow carrying on genetically, energetically, because the people buying fairness creams today are not people who were living under British rule. I guarantee it. It's not your 75, 80, 85-year-old crowd of people who are flooding the pharmacies to buy fairness creams. The people who are buying them are people who have always been free in India, who don't know colonial rule, but somehow who have internalized that which so calculatively, so brilliantly, so purposely was inculcated into the people of India at that time. And okay, at that time there may not have been a choice. We may not have had control over our education systems, over the books, over the media. But we have since independence. What's the excuse now? Why are we perpetuating this myth that somehow things that come from abroad? It's absurd. People will say things like, oh, you're coming from America, would you bring me a digital camera? It's just an example. But, well, the camera is being made in Tokyo. It is being shipped from Tokyo to LA. If I purchase that camera in LA, or in New York, or Paris, or London, or anywhere abroad, and I bring it back to India, there is a sense of much more inherent value. Oh, ये तो अमेरिका से आई है, ये तो विदेश वाली है, वो तो सभी विदेश वाली है, टोक्यो में बनी हुई है. But if it flies from Tokyo to Delhi, or Tokyo to Mumbai, and you buy it in Delhi or Mumbai, same camera, why is it of less value? And it's the mindset. And so I realize that being someone who comes from abroad, I don't necessarily have the right to tell Indians what their independence should be, but having lived here for 22 years, I hope gives me at least a little bit of right, because the tragedy that I see in this nation of people who should be so filled with pride, overflowing with pride, to be Indian. This is a place, look around you, look at all the non-Indians just in this room who have come from their countries to sit here, to be in India, to be in Rishikesh, to come to Aarti, to come to Satsang. Because this culture, this country, this land has a magic. And my prayer for India is that in her independence, now so many years after being free from the colonizers, that she gets free from the mentality of being colonized and really fully embraces that freedom and that pride.